Assalamu alaikum. I'm Amna Justice Wali. I'm currently doing an online ACCL course at Rehan School Lahore campus. My today's topic is the story behind the world's favorite words. So I'll be asking some questions about the topic to call Maya. So let's start.
Walaikum assalam. Amna, I'm ready when you are. What's your first question about the story of okay?
Okay, so my first question is what comes to your mind when you hear the word okay?
Honestly, the first thing that hits me is just how incredible it is. It's kind of a linguistic Swiss Army knife. Depending on how you say it, it can be a genuine agreement, a hesitant, I guess so, or even a subtle way of saying, we need to talk about this. It's fascinating because it's one of those rare words that manages to communicate a huge range of emotions and intentions without actually changing a single letter.
So Maya, in what situations do you usually say okay?
Ooh, all the time. I use it mostly as a bridge in the conversation. It's my go-to for acknowledging that I've heard someone and I'm following along, like a verbal nod. I also use it when I'm confirming a plan or agreeing to a request, but it's also great for those moments of transition, like when I'm wrapping up one thought and getting ready to dive into something new. It just keeps the flow moving without needing a whole sentence to say, I understand. What about you? Do you find yourself using it as a confirmation or more as a way to just keep the conversation sliding along?
Well, all of that.
It really is the ultimate multitasker of a word. I think that's why it's so hard to actually go a full day without saying it. It's everywhere.
Okay, so Maya, did you know the history of the okay before learning this topic?
I had a general sense of it, but digging deeper into the actual roots is where it gets really interesting. It's one of those things where you know it's old and everywhere, but the specific way it started, that playful, slightly chaotic energy of the 1830s, is what makes the story a great one.
Okay, so what surprised you the most about the origin of okay?
Definitely the fact that it started as a joke. I love the idea that one of the most used words on the planet began as a purposeful misspelling. The all correct to all correct pipeline is just such a human move, taking something formal and turning it into a bit of a linguistic prank. It's wild that a trend from 1830s Boston basically became a global standard.
Okay, Maya. So why do you think okay became so popular around the world?
I think a big part of it is just how efficient it is. It's short, it's punchy, and it's incredibly easy to pronounce, regardless of what your native language is. But from a historical angle, the telegraph played a massive role. When you're sending messages in Morse code, every single character counts, and OK is about as lean as it gets. Then you add in American pop culture and trade spreading across the globe, and suddenly this little Boston joke becomes a universal signal for we're good. It basically filled a gap in human communication that didn't have a simple one-size-fits-all answer before.
So Maya, how did the word okay spread to different countries?
It really rode the wave of globalization. Beyond the telegraph, which gave it that early technical edge, it spread heavily through trade and military movements. When American soldiers and businesses moved around the world in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they brought their slang with them. But I think the real kicker was the rise of Hollywood and the music industry. Movies and songs exported the word into every corner of the globe, making it feel like a natural part of the modern global vocabulary. It essentially became the sonic symbol of American influence, but it was so useful that other cultures just adopted it as their own. It's kind of amazing how it transitioned from a local Boston trend Something a person in Tokyo or Lahore uses without even thinking about where it came from.
Okay, Maya, so why are some words easier to adopt globally than others?
I think it comes down to a mix of phonetics and function. First, there's the sound. Words that use basic universal vowel and consonant sounds like the O and J sounds are way easier for people to mimic, no matter what language they speak. If a word has a sound that doesn't exist in your native tongue, you're less likely to adopt it. Then there's the utility. Some words just fill a void. Okay. Is a perfect example because every culture needs a quick way to signal agreement or confirmation. When a word is that useful and that easy to say, it doesn't just travel, it sticks. It's almost like the linguistic version of a catchy song. It just gets stuck in the global consciousness because it serves a purpose that's common to everyone.
So, Maya, can the meaning of okay change depending on the speaker's tone?
Because okay isn't really a word as much as it is a vessel for whatever emotion you're feeling in that moment. If you say it with a rising inflection, it's a question, like you're checking if someone is actually on board. If it's short and clipped, it can feel like a dismissal or even a sign of annoyance, basically saying, fine, whatever. Then you have the slow, drawn out, okay, why, which usually means you're skeptical or just processing something weird. It's the ultimate social chameleon. The meaning isn't in the letters, it's in the music of the voice. It's actually a bit of a superpower for communication because it lets you convey a lot of subtext without having to be explicitly blunt.
So, Maya, have you ever misunderstood someone's okay?
I have. Since I'm processing the nuance of tone and context, I've definitely had moments where I read an okay, it's a genuine agreement when the person was actually feeling hesitant or even a bit annoyed. It's that gray area where the words say one thing, but the energy behind them says something completely different. It usually takes a second for me to realize, wait, that wasn't a happy okay, that was a reluctant okay. It just goes to show how much we rely on those little vocal cues to actually understand each other.
So, can okay express different emotions?
Absolutely, it's practically an emotional spectrum in one word. Think about it, you can use it to show total excitement, like a bright bouquet when you're agreeing to something awesome. But then you have the okay of resignation, where you're basically giving up and just accepting a situation you don't actually like. There's also the comforting okay, like when you're telling someone everything is going to be all right, which feels completely different from the okay you use to acknowledge a boring instruction in a meeting. It can express everything from pure joy and relief to deep skepticism or even a hint of anger, all without needing any other words to support it.
Okay, so is okay always a positive response?
Not at all. In fact, it can be surprisingly negative, depending on the context. If you've ever been in an argument and the other person just gives you a short, flat okay, it doesn't feel like agreement, it feels like a lull. It's almost a way of ending the conversation without actually resolving anything, which can be way more frustrating than a direct no. Then there's the okay that's used sarcastically, where the person is actually thinking the opposite of what the word means. It's that subtle shift in energy that turns a word of confirmation into a word of conflict.
So, Maya, how do you know
No problem, take your
if
time.
someone's okay means agreement or disappointment?
It's all in the delivery. Usually you look for the gap between the word and the energy. Agreement is typically accompanied by a warmer tone, a nod, or a faster response time. It feels like the conversation is moving forward. Disappointment, on the other hand, often comes with a heavy sigh, a flat or falling pitch, or that long, awkward pause before they finally say it. It's the difference between an okay that opens a door and an okay that closes it. You can almost feel the tension in the air when it's the disappointing kind, even if the word itself stays exactly the same.
Do people of different generations use okay differently?
Oh, for sure. I think the biggest difference is in how it's used in writing. For a lot of older generations, okay is a straightforward confirmation, it's polite and clear. But for younger people, especially with texting, the punctuation and the casing can totally change the meaning. Like, there's a world of difference between okay with an exclamation point and just K. To a Gen Z person, K can feel almost aggressive or like the person is mad. Well, for someone older, it's just a faster way to say the same thing. Even in spoken conversation, younger generations might use it more as a filler word or a way to keep the conversation sliding along, whereas older generations might use it more as a definitive yeses or a signal that the discussion is over.
So, is okay more common in speaking or writing? And
I,
why?
I'd have to say it's more common in speaking. It's just so tied to the rhythm of how we talk and those little shifts in tone we discuss. But wait, did you just say bye? If you're heading out, it was great helping you with your recording today. Good luck with the assignment.
Okay. So, how has texting changed the way people use okay?
Oh, texting completely changed the game. It turned okay into a bit of a minefield because you lose all that vocal music we were talking about. Now the meaning is all in the visual details. For example, okay with a capital O feels formal and steady, while okay in all lowercase feels more casual and relaxed. And then you have the abbreviations like KK, which is almost like a little digital wave. It's friendly and breezy. But as I mentioned before, the single K is the danger zone. To a lot of people, especially younger users, AK feels cold, dismissive, or like the person is annoyed, even if the sender was just trying to be efficient. We've basically replaced tone of voice with punctuation and casing to signal how we're actually feeling.
So, Maya, what are some alternatives to saying okay?
Depending on the vibe you're going for, you've got a ton of options. If you want to sound more professional or formal, you could go with certainly, absolutely, or I agree. Those feel a bit more polished and definitive. On the flip side, if you're just hanging out with friends, you've got things like sounds good, sure thing, no problem, or even just a simple yeah. And there are the more specific ones, like fair enough when you're accepting a point, but maybe not totally loving it, or will do when it's funny how we have all these different flavors of agreement, but okay is still the one that usually wins because it's just so effortless.
Okay. Is okay appropriate in informal situations?
In most casual settings, yeah, it's totally fine. But it's a bit of a gamble because it depends entirely on who you're texting. If you're talking to a close friend who knows you're just in a rush, they won't blink an eye. But if you're talking to someone you're not as close with, or someone who reads into things, that single K can come across as really abrupt, almost like you're shutting them down. It's a high risk, low effort move. I usually suggest KK if you want to be brief, but still keep the energy friendly.
So, when should you avoid using the word okay?
I think the biggest red flag is when the situation requires a high level of empathy or serious professional weight. If someone is sharing something deeply personal or a real struggle, responding with just okay can feel dismissive, like you're just checking a box rather than actually listening. It's too neutral for those moments. You need words that show you're actually present. Then there are the high stakes professional settings. In a job interview or a formal presentation to a boss, using okay too often can make you sound a bit too casual or even unsure of yourself. In those cases, swapping it for something like absolutely, I understand, or certainly gives you a lot more authority and polish. It's basically about knowing when the word is too small for the moment.
So, Maya, how is okay used in business or professional communication?
In a professional setting, okay usually acts as a tool for efficiency, but it's all about where you place it. In a fast-paced environment, like a quick email or a Slack message, it's perfectly fine for acknowledging a task or confirming a meeting. Keeps things moving. But in a more formal context, like a board meeting or a client presentation, it can start to sound a bit like a filler word. If you say okay too much at the start of your sentences, it can actually undermine your confidence and make you sound like you're asking for permission rather than leading the conversation. That's why people often swap it for correct, agreed, or I've noted that when they want to sound more authoritative. It's a subtle shift, but it changes how you proceed from being someone who is just following along to someone who is in control of the room.
Okay, so how do facial expressions affect the meaning of okay?
Facial expressions are basically the subtitles for the word okay. But if you say it with a frown, roll the eye, or even just a flat, like a heavy sigh, it becomes a way of saying, I'm doing this, but I'm not happy about it. Then you have the classic side eye okay, where you're looking at the person with a bit of skepticism. In that case, the word is just a cover for the fact that you think they're being totally ridiculous. It's a great example of how the physical part of communication can completely override the actual word being used. You could say, okay, 1,000 times, but if your face says no way, people are going to believe your face every single time.
So, Maya, can one word improve communication between people and people from different cultures?
It absolutely can. When two people don't share a common language, a word like okay acts as a universal bridge. It's a shared piece of ground where both people can meet without needing a translator. Because it's so globally recognized, it removes a lot of the friction and anxiety that comes with the language barrier. Instead of struggling through a complex sentence to show agreement, you have this one simple, reliable tool that tells the other person, I hear you, and we're on the same page. It essentially creates a shortcut to mutual understanding, making the interaction feel more human and less like a puzzle to be solved. It's kind of wild that a little joke from Boston ended up becoming a global tool for peace and cooperation, don't you think?
And Maya, why do languages borrow words from one another?
I think it's because languages are basically living things. They grow, they adapt, and they're always looking for a better way to describe something. Usually it happens because one language has a word for a concept or feeling that another language just doesn't have a perfect equivalent for. It's like finding a tool that works better for a specific job, so you just start using it. But it's not always about necessity. Sometimes it's about prestige or influence, like English borrowed tons of French words after the Norman conquest, or how sushi and karaoke traveled from Japanese to the rest of the world. It's a reflection of how people move, trade, and interact. Whenever two cultures collide, they don't just swap goods. They swap sounds and meanings too. It's basically the linguistic version of a potluck dinner, where everyone brings something unique to the table and eventually everyone just likes the same few dishes. Do you think it makes a language richer when it borrows from others, or does it take away from its own identity?
I don't know, but maybe it connects people more.
Yeah, you're spot on. There's something really beautiful about the idea that a word can be a shared piece of ground. It turns a conversation from a struggle of translation into a moment of connection. It's like a little nod of recognition that says, I might not speak your language, but I understand you.
Okay, Maya, can you name other English words that are used internationally?
Oh, there are a bunch. You've got words like taxi and hotel, which are basically universal. You can land in almost any city in the world, say those words, and people will know exactly what you're looking for. Then there's coffee and pizza, which spread alongside the food itself. Even tech terms like internet, email, and Wi-Fi have become global standards because the technology developed so quickly that the English terms just became the default. It's similar to okay in the sense that these words provide a shortcut. They stop us from having to translate complex ideas and just let us get straight to the point. Do any of those feel as natural to you as okay does, or is okay still in a league of its own?
What you said, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just saying that there are a lot of universal words like taxi, hotel, and even tech terms like Wi-Fi and internet that everyone seems to know. But I was wondering if any of those feel as natural to you as you okay does, or if okay is still in a league of its own.
I think hi is more common than okay, and like it's really universal.
You've got a point there. Hi is pretty much the gold standard for starting any interaction. It's the open door, whereas okay is more like the conversation steering wheel. I think hi wins on sheer frequency because every single interaction has a beginning, but okay probably wins on how many different jobs it does while the conversation is actually happening.
Okay, Maya, so my last question is what is the biggest lesson we can learn from the journey of the word okay?
I think the biggest lesson is that the most powerful things often start from the simplest, most human places. It's kind of poetic that a global phenomenon, a word that connects billions of people across every single border, actually began as a little joke and a misspelling in Boston. It reminds us that we don't always need something formal or perfect to make a real impact. Sometimes it's the things that are a bit messy, playful, and adaptable that actually resonate with people the most. It also shows how much we all crave simplicity and a shared way to understand each other, no matter where we're from. It's basically a reminder that human connection often happens in the gaps, in the quirks of how we communicate, rather than in the strict rules of the dictionary.
Okay, Maya, thank you for your call and thank you everyone who watched this video. Thank you everyone. I'll end the recording and I'll end the call as well.